Welcome to Growing Older, Living Younger, the podcast that will help you discover your personal roadmap to staying healthy, happy, and vibrant as you age. With your host, international speaker, author, and dance and doc extraordinaire, Dr. Gillian Lockitch.
Welcome back to Growing Older, Living Younger. I'm your host, Dr. Gillian Lockitch, author of Growing Older, Living Younger, The Science of Aging Gracefully, and the Art of Retiring Comfortably. The goal of this podcast and the book is to show you how small changes in lifestyle and habits can have a positive impact on your health and vitality as you age. While each of the 7 foundational pillars of the Growing Older, Living Younger roadmap work together to promote aging youthfully, mindset is paramount. Your beliefs shape how you think, feel, and act. And if you are to overcome life's challenges when they strike, you have to believe in your ability to do so. My guest today, Adena Sampson, founder of Outloud Productions and the Unbreakable Spirit Movement, is a breakthrough coach, inspirational speaker, singer, songwriter, and best-selling author of the book, The Road Back to Me, 9 Principles for Navigating Life's Unexpected Twists and Turns. As I read about the range of Adena's accomplishments, it struck me that she could truly be described as a Renaissance woman. As an accomplished singer, songwriter, guitarist, and producer, Adena has been emcee, narrator, and presenter for workshops and seminars, done voiceovers and jingles, commercials, and broadcast. An entrepreneur at heart, Adena has an extensive background in event management, media marketing, and sales, and has built and trained solid teams in the network marketing industry, which I'm particularly interested in. As a high-performance leader with an online technology company, ranking in the top 40 of 20,000, she was responsible for the growth and expansion of over 500 affiliates. A born traveler with a love for adventure and passion for life, she sings from her soul with a gritty, raw power and passion rarely heard today. Regretfully, we're not going to hear her sing today, but we are going to talk about the compelling story that led Adena to become an inspiring coach, teaching us how to overcome challenges and turn them into victories. So welcome, Adena, to Growing Older, Living Younger.
Oh, Dr. Gillian, let me just tell you, thank you so much. I love just hearing you speak. Your frequency, your vibration of your tonal, of course I have to hear that since that is a bit of my background, is phenomenal. It's such a pleasure to be here with you. Again, thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm so intrigued by the range of your talents, from artist and performer to entrepreneur. And I'd really love you to start off by sharing your story about what the challenges are that you have overcome to bring you to this amazing place that you are today.
Oh, sure. And again, one hell of a ride. That's where I'll start. I think so many, and especially now more than anything over the last few years with the pandemic, so many are searching, if they weren't before, right? Again, I think as human beings, all of us are searching for some solid ground. The thing is, uncertainty is definitely the one thing that is certain. And so I guess my belief at this point, starting off with also my story and where I've been, is that you can thrive through it, okay? You don't have to survive or merely exist. I was there. I've been there. Life will throw you twists and turns, and it's really not about waiting for the storm to pass, right? One of my favorite quotes truly is by Vivian Green, and it says what? Life is not about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning how to dance in the rain. Now, I know as a dancer yourself,
I love that.
right? And because it moves me because it represents my life, my journey. That, look, the storms are not going to stop coming. For us to think that or want that, therein lies the pain. And so my journey begins long ago, I guess, Dr. Jill, to answer your question, like so many of us, again, in my childhood. Okay, we've heard it before. I'm not here to reinvent the wheel. However, I am here to say that my health journey, my healing journey has not been without trauma, right? And that being linked to a lot of what I've experienced, because as you had wonderfully started this podcast off with in your introduction, is that mindset is truly key. We understand that doctors and resources are key as well. And forgetting the mindset piece, though, is forgetting what 90% of the puzzle. A big part of what and why I'm able to speak to you today is healing these spaces and places within me that were wounded, that I didn't realize were still playing out in my adult life, right? The trauma, drama, growing up in an unstable home, grateful for both my parents who also came from a broken home. Again, survival runs in some of our blood, right? And what we learn at such a young age, as you know, before the age of 7, is everything we're just taking in, right? And as children, we do the best we can. We know no better, but we are sponges. And so we see mom and dad and their relationship and how that looks, and we begin to go, oh, that's what love is. And we don't realize that these survival coping mechanisms that have and were adapted to support us to survive and make sure we thought we had some type of control to have a homeostasis that we really needed but couldn't get, right, is really not serving us, playing out literally day to day, loop by loop, yeah. Including the epigenetics. I mean, we're talking multifaceted here, aren't we, Dr. Jill?
Right, and I read that your grandparents were Holocaust survivors. So,
yes, that's correct.
So they learned survival skills and then had to bring that to their relationships. And maybe you could talk a little bit about how that affected the two, your parents and your...
Sure. It's a great question. And thank you. This is nice. It's something different that I haven't been able to, aside from the book, really express. Mm-hmm. Again, when you come from broken homes, what does that look like? Just to give everybody a bit of a history. My grandmother is the sole survivor pretty much of my family lineage from the Holocaust. Okay. All of her family, her brothers, her sisters, they were killed, died, gas chambers, Auschwitz, Bergen-Belsen. She was in both. Now, interestingly enough, you might find this is where I'm getting this too. She survived because of her voice, because she could sing. That is what kept her alive in the camps, was singing for the officers. Okay, so that story in itself is, I get kind of what I call my angel bumps when I say that and I hear that. So that's where this all starts on my father's side. Okay, my father's father actually was he was in the British Army. Right, drove a tank. Interestingly enough, fast forward everything that he was doing and fought in the war, he ended up liberating the camp, okay, that my grandmother was in. I think it might have been Auschwitz. I'm not quite sure which order it was, okay. And from there, they got married in literally what was Hitler's bedroom at the time. I remember growing up, seeing this black and white picture on the wall in my grandmother's home. Something you really can't forget. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember a lot either. Okay, not unfamiliar for a lot of us who have gone through some trauma and whatnot, but I remember that. What is that? Oh, that's me and your grandfather in Hitler's bedroom. What? Again, that imprint that makes, that already the survivor, the warrior spirit, the wow, what you have to go through to even continue another day that so many people never make it through. And then what they did to have families of their own. My grandfather came from a broken home. He had a stepmother. He wasn't treated right. Again, and here they are then coming together to build a family after the war. And they do the best they know, but they don't really have the best example before them. So it just proves our point, even with the study. I'm going to keep bringing up epigenetics just because it's a big, per your medical biochemistry history, but also what we talk about in the lineage is not just physical hereditary, but let's talk about the emotional hereditary aspects that are passed down, and also that family lineage experiential, again, it may be far-fetched, and yet in all the research I've done and what I've lived through, it is so truly something at the core of all of us. I believe the work that we do for ourselves truly does set us free, not just personally, but our lineage before us, and then everyone that comes after us,
So was it the story of your grandmother that inspired you to become a singer, that artistic side of you? I mean, you obviously have a beautiful voice.
Oh, what a great question. No, initially that's not the case. I'm very grateful to have had that, I guess, passed down in the family, where my two younger sisters sing as well. I mean, truly gifted from a very young age. So, they say sometimes it passes one generation. I truly believe all of us got the musical abilities from our grandmother. Also, I never did meet him. He died before I was born, but on my mother's side, her father had some musical talents as well. At the time. So grateful, thankful, blessed. It wasn't what inspired me, although grateful now to look back and also just be understanding of the journey I've been on, and how the music plays a role in not just her survival in the camp, but again, when she is singing, what that does for her, the people who are in the same situation as her, and even the people on the other side. It saved my life too. So I know we haven't quite gotten there yet. It takes a little time to unravel. But music literally saved my life. Almost, if you look at it in retrospect, parallel to my grandmother's, maybe a different day and time, but it saved my life when I could no longer do my business and speaking and coaching, when I was so sick that neurologically, cognitively, I couldn't even have this conversation with you a handful of years ago.
So let's talk about that.
Sure.
So sick. So wait, I'm getting. There's so much I wanted to talk to you about. So I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. So your initial career was in music. How did you get from that into network marketing and becoming an entrepreneur?
Sure. Again, a very different road than most. So I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. I don't know, I would say that my first initial with my business was in music, but yes, music, writing songs, the expression of that when I was younger. Thank God I had that outlet in a time where, my father and I would get into it, we'd have a fight, and we would okay, whatever, go write a song, I will. So did that help me with emotional regulation to the best of my abilities when I was younger, always being a sensitive individual? Sure. And then it developed as I moved forward. But I've always been an entrepreneur. My father's been in sales and marketing. Those of us that have been, I guess, a bit of gypsies, travelers, having to make a home wherever we land. Again, I was born overseas. My parents traveled a lot for my father's work. And so always been a traveler, entrepreneur at heart, and I've never been able to fit in any type of box, even corporate structures. I've been blessed to have my experiences, although my thought process and the way I see things have just always been from this entrepreneurial space. So network marketing was actually one of the first spaces I played in many, many years ago when I was a wee babe in my 20s, early 20s. That was, I'm 44 now. So quite a long time ago. I was a different person then. That was before the health scare and the downfall, right? Fighting for my life for 12 years. But I can look back now and see, again, the success I had. Every single part of my journey, all the twists and turns, all the pain has led me exactly to where I am now, to serve in a way that I could not have 20 years ago, even though I thought I would have. I've always had this innate ability within me to know that I'm here to serve in some way, shape, or form, right? So when you talk about my voice, it's not just the singing, the writing, the speaking. It's one in its own, really, isn't it? It's really that unique ability. We all have ours. I'm not your CPA, right? There's certain things I don't do well. But clearly, God, the universe, whatever it is your beliefs are, I've been gifted this gift and being told you must use it, right? Take your pain to purpose, right? So there's not a straight line if you're looking for one in my story, for sure.
None of our paths are straight lines, that's for sure. So tell me about what happened to you with the health issue.
Sure. So I was misdiagnosed probably for a good 5 years straight. I'm coming out of about a 13-year stint of fighting for my life. And again, I don't say that lightly because let's just talk about, again, we'll bring it in because it is relative to today, COVID, long haulers. Whatever your beliefs, political stature, again, my opinion, that is irrelevant. We want to talk about what we're experiencing from a medical standpoint, okay, from the fact that so many of us long before COVID that were either dealing with mystery illnesses, autoimmune disorders. For me, it was chronic Lyme disease and its viral co-infections that went misdiagnosed and undetected for 5 years at least. And then another how many years that I described, right, if it was the last 13 years, that I went through in and out of doctor and doctor. I was an anomaly to all the doctors, Dr. Jill. And as a doctor yourself, right, you understand everybody's doing their best. We have some wonderful technologies out there. Western medicine has its place. Absolutely. I would never, ever veer to say otherwise. However, in my circumstance and like yours, I had to look for alternative therapies and doctors who were thinking outside of the box and already dealing with more than just, oh, you have Lyme disease, take 2 weeks of doxycycline and you'll be okay. Well, unfortunately, that is a long overdue misunderstood myth that doesn't work for those of us who have been chronically suffering to an excess, to a point of non-functional.
Okay, so
again,
start from the beginning.
Here.
Okay, so start from the beginning and tell me what was the first indication for you that something was wrong, that you were going to later realize it was Lyme disease. How did it present?
So after 2008, we all remember that, right? Everything kind of came crashing down financially. Again, that's when the network marketing, everything we had built that was cream of the crop came crumbling down. Just thought I think you'd get a kick out of that, right? So we talk about what happens when we're not well and some of the stressors and the triggers, as I believe, again, what I've dealt with is multifaceted, just like a lot of what we're seeing now. It's not one thing, it's many things, a domino effect. You get boom, 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 and there you are at the bottom. So that took place. I went through a major breakup at the time, which was, for me, pretty heart-wrenching. I ended up in the hospital. I remember waking up one morning with my right breast inflamed and on fire. Never felt anything like it in my life. Ended up going to the doctor. They didn't know what it was. It's some kind of infection. Needless to say, I've got high fever at this point. You know, something's really wrong. I remember being in the hospital, being with 6 nurses around me trying to stick me, and they couldn't get a vein. And realizing this moment in time with my partner at the time there, Adena, like hearing from God, literally, what are you doing? When is enough is enough? I was not happy, and it wasn't just that I was unhappy. This was an unhealthy relationship that I had contributed to, right? Again, from where I'd come from. And here I am remembering in that moment, getting home with the PICC line in me. At some point they had said I had MRSA at the time, okay? No, I'm not negating that. I'm just saying I've been misdiagnosed many times, and the journey's been so long, like many Lyme, other people who have suffered and do suffer from Lyme, that at that time there was no cognizant understanding. Even after flying to infectious disease, at the time I was in Hawaii, in Maui, even flying to Honolulu, same thing. They missed that, or if they did, it was always a false negative. That was the beginning of it. And I just knew in my heart, there was something in my soul that said, I was on the floor and I said, something's not right. Like, I know I don't like to say that, but I felt like I was going to die. Something's really off here. And if this doesn't get my attention, I don't know what will. But this is it. This is a major moment in your life. And that's when it started, though. That was just the beginning. Okay. Again, in and out of doctors, being misdiagnosed, not knowing what was what. Interestingly enough, I actually ended up having the rash on my, the bullseye rash on that right side, right? No coincidence with the inflammation in the breast. And yet, again, it was not acknowledged. Most of the time in Hawaii, it would be considered, again, MRSA, because that's the biggest thing on the island. That's what they knew. And oftentimes you could get rashes like this, but never once was it ever brought up that anything could be a possibility Lyme related. Many years later, when it was, I had gone to another infectious disease specialist in Marin County, again, traveling at the time. Same thing. You have past Rocky Mountain spotted fever, no big deal. Now, what I know about things now, that's not the truth. I know now, but my point was it was false negatives, which you have across the board with Lyme disease. Hence a big part of why you see so many people not getting treated or having that being missed so readily. Very much like you have seen with COVID, actually. Lyme disease is not just a bacterial infection for those who are unaware of the whole picture. It comes most often with co-infections, many of which are viral in nature, which can wreak havoc, like I said, in exactly what you're seeing and experiencing in COVID long haulers today. So,
this sort of brings up something that I haven't thought about for a long time. So when I was back in South Africa, I was working for the South African Medical Research Council, and I was doing research in a remote village in Zululand, as it was called at that time. And we then went to present a paper at a conference, and I experienced the most excruciating headache that I have ever experienced in my life. I had no idea what was going on. It was so bad that I had to leave the conference and go home. And I came out with, again, this sort of target or bullet kind of rash. And basically, they diagnosed some kind of a tick bite disorder. Nobody was quite sure what specifically it was at the time. But, I probably got it from going out into the bush as I was sort of interviewing people in this remote village. But I do remember that as a result of the treatment, I ended up with another major complication of the medication, which was called Stevens-Johnson syndrome, an incredible rash, potentially, again, fatal. So I think the whole issue of these undiagnosed or unrecognized tick-related diseases is huge, because, as you say, many of them can be like the ideal mimics. So where there isn't a specific test or diagnosis or an accurate serological test, again, quite often you can get mentioned as hysterical, or you're imagining it, or all these flitting symptoms that you're having are not real. So really interested in what are the other manifestations. So you mentioned the arthritis, the fever, the rash. What else have you experienced?
Sure. The headaches were 24/7 for me, Dr. Jill. So what you experienced, non-functional, right? And again, you don't know which way is up, and you're having to be a guinea pig testing this, testing that. It's an amazing feat, though. What a journey to learn and trust your intuition, which is a big part of where I am now on the outside of this, right? Again, hard to see we're in the middle of it, because when you are literally fighting for your life, and the PTSD that you just expressed and explained and, related to here is so key that we talk about this, because you are second guessing yourself. There's a lot of gaslighting that is going on in the medical community as well. Again, there is no blame here. It happens. It's happened in our childhoods. Again, it's nobody's necessarily fault, but it is our responsibility to understand, we always have to ask ourselves, is this true? And when we are going from place to place and we're not even in our right mind, only because we can't see the forest through the trees, when you're dealing with so many physical ailments, anybody should really, I think there needs to be more compassion and understanding to what that does to a person. It is not the person that you are dealing with. If someone is sick and short or having bouts of rage, which is what's taken place with me. Not that I haven't had anger issues in the past. I will absolutely admit to that and my journey. However, Lyme rage, right, is real. And so that's just an example that a lot of people won't understand it. They take it personally and can't understand that you are doing the best with what you've been given. And when the closest people to you don't understand because the tests are not showing so, and the doctor's not sure, the tests are not showing so, and especially, again, I am not a feminist, but as a woman, it still happens even more readily, okay, that we are not taken necessarily seriously. And we're going in and out of the doctor saying, help me, I'm at my end. I can't function. I can barely speak. What do I do? There's no point in living this way. This is not surviving. This is merely existing. That's a whole nother level, Dr. Jill.
Fibromyalgia is another classic example of, no specific test. So is it a real entity? But I want to pick up on something funny that I read in your book. You were talking about brain fog at one stage, and you tell the story of how you reached for your sandals and then walked out of the house wearing odd sandals, and didn't realize the whole day that you had different sandals on each foot. And it reminded me of an experience. I don't know whether it was brain fog. I was pregnant. It was in my last year of medical school. 1,000 things going on in my mind. And one day I sort of got dressed, went off to the hospital, and I found myself sort of almost limping, and didn't sort of take heed of it until one of my friends, one of my colleagues who was on my medical intern team, said to me, Jill, do you realize that you've got odd shoes on? And the heel on the one was just a fraction shorter than the other one. So, yeah.
So you were literally off kilter, literally.
I was. So I want to just shift gears now. So going through this entire experience led you to write your book, and you talk about 9 principles that you use to overcome challenges. So can we talk a little bit about what you would consider the top 3 principles that people would need to use to start addressing a challenge?
Absolutely. Great question. Again, I'm really loving this organic flow, this conversation, and great, again, questions, Dr. Jill. So much appreciated. So again, I know that you have 7 lifestyle changes, right, in these 7 core areas for yourself. And I've developed, and I won't take full credit because, again, like the music, it comes through me, right? My way of living right now is in co-creation with spirit. It's never separate. And it wasn't, I'm going to write the book. It is, you're going to write the book. It's time. Oh, really? Okay. Let's get to it then, shall we? So yes, I have 12, 9 principles. I do that, I do about 12 weeks in the program when we go through it, aside from the book, I have a course. I will say that not one principle necessarily, very much familiar to probably your circumstance, is necessarily different or separate or better than. I will give you a top 3, but I'm going to restate that to understand that, of course, each principle goes hand in hand, overlaps. Like yourself, it's about making lifestyle changes, daily habits, understanding what is no longer working in the mindset, and then replace that with what does, so that we can thrive no matter the storm. And again, especially when we're talking about growing older and living younger. Look, we're all at different ages. I'm not sitting here saying that I'm where you're at, Dr. Jill, or anything like that, but we're all where we need to be. I will say, though, the same thing that we ask ourselves, right? Is it true? For example, and let me just regress because I think this is important for your audience. I think it's very common, and this is just very common. We could pick anything, but when you're aging, and the people around me, my parents, I hear them say things that necessarily, again, it's not their fault. It's just not really serving their health and vitality right now, right? Both of them are both 68 right now, my parents. A couple of my best friends are 68. Actually, one is close to 80. I'm blessed to just have wonderful people in my life. Again, age is irrelevant. It is the mindset that matters. And they say statements like, I'm too old for this and that, right? I'm too old, fill in the blank. Now, let's use that because that's not the truth. Is it true? No. It's only what we've been taught and told for so long, whether that be, again, from school, from teachers, from parents. But we never really sit there and question, is it true? It's not. And again, we already know this, but I think it's important before I go into these principles and the mindset that we talk about, irrelevant of wherever you are on your journey, right? Whether it is transition, crisis, of course, that's a big role that we play with our audience. It doesn't have to be when you're going into retirement, for example. That is a transition, a major life transition. That gets you thinking differently and feeling feelings, very much like when you've got a child that goes off to college and you might be feeling, symptoms of, I'm not sure what to do with myself now, or what does this mean? We start questioning our identity, which still leads us back to the work and the root that we do from very young, is that it is not what we do that makes us who we are. And so what I'm trying to say is the couple friends that I have that are a lot older in age, they are young at heart because they choose to. What stands out to me between them, for example, and my parents or a few others that I notice that have a harder time with their aches and pains now, or even some of their vitality, is that their mindset is just different. My friends who are more aware and alert, it's truly because they lean towards optimism. They are forward thinkers. They believe that anything is still possible, irrelevant of their age. They are aligned still with some type of passion or purpose. Again, not out of doing or identity that makes you feel somehow, what we deem as in this world successful, but really just getting back again to the road back to me, the road back to themselves of what the truth really is underneath this. And just starting to place these principles and practices into place daily, so that we have a different experience, because we do. It's a lot easier than we make it, right?
Yeah, and just to sort of put all of that in context, obviously, my program is basically resetting your aging blueprint, and it's a 5-week program where people can sort of start to create their own idea, their own roadmap of how they can change their aging trajectory. And I talk to a lot of people that I've talked to in the last couple of weeks are, in sort of my age category, 70s plus. And it's absolutely remarkable the difference between some who are out there volunteering, doing things, believing that they can do everything, including go on the internet, use Facebook, whatever it is. And then you have the others who just, I'm too old to learn this. So I totally agree with you. And how do you reach those people to help them change their mindset is a big, big question.
Sure. So we do that a few different ways. And again, talking about the principle. One, as you know, first is getting over, I'm only going to speak for myself, but a lot of us who do care and who have always been sensitive, who are people who are serving, we let go that we can. Meaning, we can only do our work, we can't do it for another. And until we heal that within ourselves and the codependency in our relationships, we can't. I could have never coached. I was not ready when I told you I did what I did 20 years ago. There was no way, considering where I've been now in my journey. Again, it's not about being positive. I don't want to talk about spiritual bypassing. That doesn't work. What we do is we set the foundation. First, everybody in transition feels like their life is crumbling. Everything falls away. That is an empty feeling, a scary feeling, and yet so necessary. So we first start with, okay, things are falling away so that we can rebuild from a more solid foundation. If we start to rebuild from a foundation that we already know that is no longer serving us and not working, that really doesn't do much but kind of keep us where we're at, kind of on a hamster wheel. So principle number 1, shift your perspective. Mm-hmm. Again, not reinventing the wheel, but that really came through. That is definitely, there's a reason why it's my number 1 principle.
For me, okay. It's been an important thing is you cannot want something for somebody else more than they want it for themselves. We need to talk quickly about the next couple of principles. So tell me what would be your top 3?
Sure. So shift your perspective for sure. Again, it's amazing what can happen when we're able to stand back and go from being blind to seeing. Okay. We often think that we may know, but oftentimes we don't until we do. And a lot of times we need to completely shift our perspective and say, wait a second, we got to rewind, stop for a second. Is this, true? What am I thinking here? Can I be grateful for these experiences? What is this teaching me? Because I believe everything truly happens for a reason. Now, again, people might think, oh, yeah. Here's the thing. It doesn't matter. If it works and it helps, we use it, we move forward. So shifting my perspective for me was the first and foremost thing that I had to do to be able to start to heal and shift a lot of the pain inside me, mentally, physically, emotionally, all of that. Okay.
Number two.
Number two, reclaim your power. What you just said. We can't want it more for another person. And many of us, for me, this is just personally on my journey. Some of us have personalities where it is not easy to see, Dr. Jill. However, I was giving away my power and I had no idea. Can you believe it? Even a person who's always been, aware and on the journey, even at a very young age. I didn't realize that until only a handful of years ago. Not actually, only a couple years ago, as COVID had hit and the book was being launched, as I was healing and writing about it. Oh my God, I've given away my power. Anytime.
Sorry. I'm looking for principle number 3. I need to leave.
Oh, you're wanting to, I didn't know if you wanted to spend some time on each principle or what. Okay, so reclaim your power. And number 3 would be have faith, whatever it takes. So that is 1, 5, and 9 of my principles. For the top 3, absolutely.
So really, for people to truly understand what your process is, I think I will have the link to your book in the show notes, so people can go to your website and really uncover what are the 9 principles that you have discovered that work for you. So, Adena, I want to thank you. There's been so much to cover. And, limited time, unfortunately. So I look forward to talking to you more about all of this. But thank you so much for coming here and sharing what you've learned over all these sort of ups and downs of your life. And I'm really particularly interested in following up a little more about Lyme disease and the way it is a disorder that many people don't know that they have. So again, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Jill. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on the show. Really happy to be here and again to connect with your audience. Thank you so much. Feel free to reach out with any other questions. And I look forward to our continuing our journey ahead.
Right. So to learn more about Adena and her book, you'll find all the links in the show notes. Please get hold of a copy of the book. I found it quite engrossing, and it's made me rethink some of the concerns that I have about my own personal journey. So to discover how you can create your own roadmap to living younger as you grow older, you can schedule a free discovery call with me. You can order your copy of Growing Older, Living Younger, The Science of Aging Gracefully and the Art of Retiring Comfortably at www.gillianlockitch.com. And please look into our private Growing Older, Living Younger Facebook community to meet with people online who, like you, are discovering and sharing ways to age in great health. And you'll find the links for all of this in the show notes. So thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this and other episodes, tell your friends. Rate and review the show, and you'll see how to do that in the show notes. If you're new to this podcast, check out earlier episodes at the Growing Older, Living Younger website. And I look forward to you joining me again for our next conversation on Growing Older, Living Younger.
Thanks for tuning in to Growing Older, Living Younger. Be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, leave a rating and review and share it with your friends. Tune in every week to learn how you can change your aging at the cellular level to stay healthy, happy, and vibrant. Remember that in this podcast, we share information for educational purposes only, and the content does not provide medical advice. As you contemplate your own roadmap for healthy aging, be sure to discuss your intentions with your medical or other qualified, certified health practitioner. And until next week, dance every day.